So, I competed in the Rat Cup. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, Red, what is the Rat Cup and what do you mean you competed in it? So let me break it down for you. About 2 weeks ago, the resident gremlin known as Beastly decided to host a tournament with some cash prizing and free entry, and that did attract some folks here, and that would be me included. We competed in a format in a best of one designed by him, and we ended up having a nice time and a nice tournament. And hey, I got some matches out of it, which I'm going to show you guys today. But before we get into that, we got to show you guys the deck list, because the way that this was formatted, it forced us into a specific deck build, and I'll explain more of that when we get into the video. But before we do that, be sure to comment, like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already, as well as head over to Beastly's channel, where hopefully more of these tournament matches will be going up. Since he is the organizer, he had some content to grab for himself, and so he's putting those matches up over on the channel, so you can find out who eventually won the tournament over there when those videos do go live. But without further ado, folks, we do have to get into the deck build. I think I've said "but" way too many times in this intro segment. Let's go ahead and jump into the deck list so I can show you guys what we're running for this video. Alright, and we're back with the deck list for this event. Now, there are some things that you probably can tell right off the bat here, that being this little guy up at the front and center. The idea of the Rat Cup was that each player was forced to run 3 copies of Rat, 3 copies of Hovel, and 3 copies of Flamestorm, forcing everyone into a mirror faction matchup of Pirate and Warlock. Not exactly the best thing in the world, knowing that you're going to be facing down Hovel and Flamestorm for the entirety of the tournament, but needless to say, there were some directions that people went which I thought were pretty good with it. But I wanted to go in a bit of a different direction and go a little bit of a spicier route. You see, you can probably already tell about what this deck is centered around based on a few select cards here. Things like Magmasaur, School of Magic, and Pyromancer are all prominently featured in this deck. That is because this was my attempt at a low-budget explosion deck. I mentioned low budget because another fact of this tournament was that players couldn't use Dragon's Fire or any legendary cards. So obviously, you know, lacking some of those crucial staples forced you to go in a bit of a different direction, and we ended up taking the explosion route. A route that I think would have been great to clear out some Swarm if we had ended up seeing it from Rat Hovels in matches, with some varying results as you'll see in the gameplay itself. But yeah, this is what I went for here. It's a bit of a spicy choice, bit of a spicy breakdown. That's not the right word. Anyway, regardless of the explosion things, there are some other lower budget cards here. I went with the Lifesteal package as my higher end cards like White Knight Vampire to clean up. Blaze, not something that you see often, but I think it's another one of those great little cheap explosion tools. It's sort of like a pocket explosion in card form here. What you can't really threaten with like Pyromancer and Magmasaur, you can keep in the card. And let me tell you, with players who want to position their hovels in the back of the castle very early in this format because you have the hovel down, it's important to, you know, pop in a Blaze or two, just so that way not only do you get the Flamestorm burn, but you can actually finish the job with something like a Blaze while also getting some effective castle damage. But with that being said, and my strategy overall was just sort of, hey, can I get some explosion value? And if not, let's grab some lifesteal units to kind of ensure that I can, you know, hit over a lot of incoming tokens. Which, like I said, varying success. Honestly, looking back at it, may not have been the smartest list to make here, but it was one I think I still found fun regardless, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the matches that this deck ends up producing to you. Speaking of which, we'll get into those in a moment, but just want to take some time to thank and introduce Slasher, who is joining me on this commentary. Not here right now, but he will be making an appearance inside of the matches. He wanted to do some co-casting with me, as I was going to dub over the matches anyway. He's going to come on, provide some extra commentary, and yeah, should be a great time. So, with that being said, folks, we have matches to get to. Let's go ahead and jump into match number 1 right now. All right, Slash, and I'm back with match number 1 for you right here. If the there we go.
There we
Um,
are.
yeah, and not a bad grip to start myself off though. I mean, I like the opener for myself in this one. I got the lumberjack and the dagger storm, and then even gets even better with the rat. So I mean, like, what are you thinking here for me?
I'm thinking you're running combustion.
Yeah.
Am I
Well,
right?
not entirely. I am running a heavy explosion package in here, as I showed the viewers before the matches. But I do run things like School of Magic. I do run the Magma Sword, the Pyromancer. My idea was that I probably should get some form of AoE to help clean up rat swarms. So that is what the package I went with here. And yeah, we're already kind of seeing how it's not really developing my hand too well here, but I'm going to get this hovel out here and with assisted moving from these rats, which I'm just going to throw out here. I hated how he made me throw these main rats into the deck, but it is what it is.
Aren't you glad that you actually drew them?
For this case, kind of, because I could block off the Banshee more effectively. But I mean, obviously, I'm going to try and get the Pyromancer going now. I end up making the rat trade just to get this Banshee off the board here. He picks up a burn of his own, which I'm not too happy about, but thankfully it's not something that can kill the Pyromancer right away.
I think that it's actually super important to have that burn there because, as you remember, both players are running 3 Flamestorms, so having something that does a lot of damage is really quite good.
Right. And I think here's where I make a little bit of an interesting call here. I debate whether or not to throw the blue firebolt or the dagger storm onto the Acolyte. I don't want him starting to generate resources here, so I figured I should be a little aggressive. I just have to figure out which way I want to take here. Would you take either option if you were me in this position, or would you just try and back off and maybe save both?
I think I would have backed off simply due to the fact that if he begins to generate stuff here, I mean, for one, you already have the range to clear it up, and 2, you have 2 cards in your hand now. I mean, that rat's not doing you any good. I mean, Candace is basically guaranteed to have a better hand right now.
It's annoying, but I mean, it's here. And hopefully I'm able to get good use out of it for this matchup. I will say, though, that I did notice in my games I was quite aggressive with these decks here, or with this deck in particular. I see another Banshee taking out the Pyromancer. That's unfortunate, but I just have to, you know, push through it. I don't exactly remember what I do here, though. I know I put the rat into face. I don't remember if I just leave the Banshee alone, though.
My one concern for you here as you're playing is that if you play all your units, then all of a sudden you won't have anything to block face. All of a sudden you won't have all of these good things. And in fact, I don't think I would have pushed with that rat because now you're just losing 3 damage on face for free. And while you might top deck into 1 out of 6 buffs, which will get you to it, or key Flamestorms, I guess, that's an extremely questionable call. But going back to my previous point, you could have blocked that 3 damage just fine beforehand.
Yeah, I could have. I certainly could have. But I think at this point, I was thinking to myself, you know, if I'm running out of cards here, I might as well just try and be aggressive to kind of close out this game sooner, so that way he can't regenerate any sort of advantage or presence on the board here. I get away with a lucky dagger storm here, landing 2 on the captain, 1 to the Pyromancer, thankfully keeping both of them alive here. At this point, I mean, I kind of just commit on what I said before here, where I want to close the game as soon as I can. I push in the Southport Captain for 2. I push in another Captain that I top decked here. Really only keeping the metal, which I don't know if he knows that I have just metal in hand. But yeah, at this point, I'm just looking to close the game as soon as I possibly can here with this push here. And thankfully, he's going to start getting into his rats now. We're seeing a top rat from him. I don't remember what else he pulled, though. I think he did something a little risky here, something that I don't think I would have agreed with.
I really disagree with, I think, both of your deck styles, almost. I think that, I mean, now in hindsight, looking at it, I think that Lifesteal and OTK were really the way to go, with a heavy emphasis on range, but
Right.
and he just gives you the rat for free, I guess.
Yep.
Like if you had played this White Knight on turn 4, you probably would have won the game by now.
Probably. Like, Lifesteal was sort of my back end. Like, as funny as I thought the explosion package was going to be, I did keep heavy Lifesteal packages running, like, White Knight and Vampire for sort of, like, the later end of my deck. I say later end because realistically Vampire was my most expensive card. I just tried to kind of get in aggressive as I possibly could. Not necessarily rush where I want to focus on aspects as they're coming out on the board here, more control than rush, but definitely felt like I was more of an aggressive deck choice here for this tournament.
Do you mind if I ask if you ran defective flame cannon at all?
I didn't. My spice was Blaze.
Uh-huh.
My spice was indeed Blaze, and at this point here, I got the Darkbender board. He can't remove it. That's gonna be game, and yeah, overall quite a successful.
I feel like that was a really miserable matchup, and Beastly, I hate you for this.
All right, Slash, and match number 2, I'm taking on Helios, one of our competitors from Casting Conflict Season 2 here, and I mean, after the first matchup here, how high of the hopes do you have for me going into match number 2?
You have a really, really good starting position, but for all we know, Helios is running burn. There's the burn right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting that perfect curve, but who knows what that means with bigger units possibly coming out. Blacksmith Rat Hovel is extremely strong, but it still just dies to lifesteal or any sort of burn, or it's quite amazing how Beastly has really made a interesting game mode, which I don't think he should have. He's like a Jurassic Park scientist. He asked if he could, not if he should have.
Yeah, and there's another mistake from me here playing as the Elvish Thief here. I thought, because I didn't see it last game, I thought like, oh yeah, I could probably get away with doing it, but yeah, I take a heavy hit here and debating on whether or not to bring out the Flamestorm here to make a cleanup by the Elvish Thief. I don't want more treasure per se, but I really don't want to, I probably could have just opted the Flamestorm here, but I want to keep the Rat alive for some reason. I don't know why. He blue firebolts my hovel, which is a fair response to getting your own hovel blue fired. And then, yeah, Elvish Thief going to bring in here for a 3-shot. Lumberjack as well, which I think I go for the Flamestorm here. No, White Knight. I did bring in
I think White Knight's the correct play because you get so much initiative. You're threatening Blacksmith next turn also, which will give you so much forward pushing power.
Mm-hmm. Except for
the fear's the fear's changing it up a bit, but I really like this. I like how he doesn't push with that Lumberjack. He knows that the 1 damage probably isn't going to win him the game now, and that there are, in many ways, bigger threats which could come out if he just pushes with that. For all he knows, he needs that body later down the board.
Yeah, and then I push the Elvish Thief here because I'm looking at his hand size. We're kind of equaling out with how much resources we've used throughout the game here. And he actually passes turn 5, which I think is pretty big. That's a sign that he must be hurting for something in that hand, despite having, quite a few cards. And at this point, I'm going to take another push in as well here. I pop in, I think, the Captain and the Magma Star, I believe. Yeah, opting to hold the Blacksmith until, maybe I could surprise him with just bigger amounts of damage coming in to close out the game here. But at this point, I know he's hurting. We get the Elvish Thief, the Blacksmith from him. It's going to clean up my White Knight, although making a trade. Same with the Blacksmith there. He has to actually use that to sink in for a kill here. And I'm pulling my globals here. Armory, Blacksmith, sinking in some effective damage. And at this point, if this isn't really a decider on how the game is going to end, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah, when you're in these mirror matchup situations here, unless you have some way to really clear out the rest of the board, unless you have some kind of option to slow down those globals will win you the game nearly every single time. And we're seeing a very heavy burn deck here from Helios, and that's really not quite the answer for globals when you're having all this removal, which does not work on buildings.
Right. I mean, it would work on the Blacksmith, but that's not the big problem here. I think the problem is certainly the Armory giving that extra life as opposed to the extra attack only. And I mean, he's now getting into. We saw how desperate he was. He had to he had to execute a Captain, now blue firing another one, all while not really establishing any units on the board. He's thrown out in the last several turns, like a Rat and a Lumberjack. From what I can remember, and again, like the Elvish Thief and the Blacksmith
is always able to do.
And there's the second Rat that he put into the main deck here. Of course, a forced option here. He opts to block here with the Rat, and I think, do I go? I think I go for Flamestorm here because I'm just thinking I think I have enough damage to just close. Oh no, Magma Star, I move up here. I sink in 5. I just kind of realized that if he's not playing anything from hand here, he really must have nothing. So I get aggressive. I push probably harder than people would normally push. And then I try to just, sink in the game ender here. Ryder looking to probably hit onto the captain to close out the game, but doesn't get it and ultimately surrenders in what was, I think, possibly it could have been something more, but I think maybe our opponent here just was not dealt with the strongest of resources here going into the matchup.
I'm wondering if possibly he had like 3 demonic rages in hand or something like that, where he's just these cards which are meant to buff other units, and he's never going to get a unit on the board which he can actually buff.
Yeah, which is a shame here. But, I mean, a win is a win. We'll advance into the Rat Cup further, and we have another matchup to get to, so why not hop into that right now? All right, we move into our next one, number 3, as, again, the curve is looking pretty nice, I can't lie. Lumberjack into Storm into Blacksmith.
Yeah, and here you're playing Jesper 13. He's also known as Gel in the main server. He's been around for a long time. Do you think he's going to put more of a challenge than your final 2?
Absolutely. Jesper was someone who, back in more of the heyday, back when he was more active, could be considered definitely one of the, players who knew what they were doing, per se. So, he definitely has that experience behind him. And, of course, the thing going into it was that I was a little more confident because, like, he hasn't played, X amount of months or something. Maybe I can sneak one by him. But going to the matchup here, as you'll see, things did a little wonky for me, as Blacks was now going to set up here in response to the hovel. I don't have a burn to deal with it, so that thing's going to start generating for a bit of time here. Although I do have Vampire and White Knight, which I think are going to be absolutely necessary to help clean up these rats, help control that aspect a bit more here, as I'm going to start pushing up the White Knight.
I have to say that I really like his deck choices so far, as he definitely has draw cards in it. I think the weakest point of this deck possibly is the lack of draw. I think even stronger than your average deck would just be running your buffs plus, even mono if you just run mono draw. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because he now has this big full-in push. You have a Flamestorm, which could have countered it, but you're going to play Vampire. I really like you playing Vampire instead, as that's going to allow you to maintain units on the board. He doesn't have the damage to be aggressive, and I think the only option he has here is some kind of burn. Northland's Ranger.
Yeah.
That is an excellent choice for this archetype.
The Ranger hurt, considering that it's basically a one-shot against any of my pre-buff lifesteal units here, and at this point, I'm kind of forced to take out the Flamestorm to kind of help control this. Opting the Daggerstorm as well, thankfully landing the perfect spread here to kind of control this board a little bit here, but now I'm starting to panic. I didn't expect something like that Ranger to hit that hard, and so I'm a little panicked now. I'm a little flustered about what else we could see. The Blacksmith, again, an additional hovel. It's not maybe... I'm starting to get a little more nervous with that, because now the rats don't really evenly trade here. So yeah, definitely not where I want to be, but I still have some recovery room in the game. And then pulling some additional globals here, which I think I opt to blue fire the healthier hovel and keep the armory going. Or actually, no, White Knight, and then next turn I have Blaze Armory potential here. I managed to hit the top one before the bottom, because I knew the Blaze would be enough to take out that the one next to the castle with a well-placed Blaze here. So that was my cleanup option. And here you're going to see great Blaze value slash. You're going to end up with the Armory here, which...
I sure am.
Yep, and then boom, right there, taking out the Blaze here. And post-matchup, I remember Jesper telling me that he was absolutely livid about this play, because, who the hell runs Blaze at this level? So...
I hate to burst his bubble, but my first 3600 deck ran 2 Blaze.
Damn. Well, I mean, if he sees that, then... sorry, Jesper.
I guess you'll have to cry a little bit.
So here's again where something becomes a problem now. I end up facing a 6/6 Darkbender, which you can see based on my hand is not really well equipped to deal with that right now. I have dual hovel, which is, great to start getting some additional bodies out. But just the position of this whole this board right now is not something that's in favor of me right now. He'll set up the Armory, pushing the Wizard as well here. And at this point, Slash, I'm worried about a big dark bender.
Yeah, he could definitely be hiding like a some kind of OTK potential in there, which could really be quite scary.
Right.
I think with the draw though, and the current cards we've seen, it's really looking like it's just a good stuff deck. I could be wrong, but I mean right now I think I would have taken the gamble of taking 7. The only issue is like, what if he's running something like defective? What if he's running something with that draw, which can just really mess up your day?
Yeah. And at this point, I push into the wizard here, and Slash, you said OTK, man. Guess how right on the
There it
money you
is.
were. Guess how right
There it
on the
is.
money you were. Double Demonic is going to close me out of the game here. A fat 28 damage from the Dark Bender leaves me very little room to recover, Slash. And that's my run in the Rat Cup, unfortunately. It came to a close there. We were down to the quarterfinals. At the time of recording, the finals actually have not concluded. Jesper is scheduled to face Jump, and Z-Tech is scheduled to take on, who is it again? Refresh my memory here.
I'm not certain, to be honest.
Hold on, let me bring it up here mid recording, because we're professional like this. He's scheduled to, oh no, my apologies. Z-Tech is actually in the finals. He beat out who cares, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway,
Also known as Whale or KFC by the majority of the community.
yes, I think they had a match. No, it was either him or Techno. Again, the brackets are happened, quite a few days ago, but the matches are still not done. The tournament's not finished. I don't exactly remember where everyone is in the placements. As soon as you're out, it's like you just forget everything about the brackets. So yeah, that's where it currently stands here, and I'm sure BC will have coverage of the semifinals and the finals up on his channel, which you can go watch. If you aren't already subscribed, I'll leave a link to the channel down below here. But Slash, ultimately, any thoughts on how I did per se?
I'm surprised you didn't run more draw cards, but I think that you were not left with many options due to the deck constraints. So
Yeah.
well played to your opponents, well played to you, and I hope we see a good final over on Beastly's channel.
Of course, hoping that Jesper can pick this up for me and for him and go all the way. Usually that's how I like to root on people after a tournament, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen, folks? And yeah, with that being said, I think it's time that we close out this video. And yeah, with that being said, folks, that concluded my run in the Rat Cup. As I mentioned before, I'm recording this bit in the future, so certainly sometime after I did the co-casting with Slash. I don't remember exactly where I left off in my train of thought back then, but regardless, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I think I mentioned something to be about the winners of that tournament here and me not knowing. I do know who actually won, by the way, but I won't be spoiling it here as a way to promote you guys to watch the content Beastly's putting out, which again, I'll link in the description. I'm not sure when he's going to be launching those videos, but they should be out at some point in the future. So I highly recommend you go and watch them once they do drop. I hear he's putting a lot of work and effort into making this just an incredible production on his end. So, I mean, I appreciate the effort and should definitely check that out. But before we go here, I do want to mention another thing about the tournaments that Beastly is planning on running. I think he wants to do a little bit more. And I know a couple of folks on this channel specifically have actually asked about casting conflicts and whether or not they can themselves be participators inside of our league here. And normally, I told people that we were discussing it, which is something that was happening. We wanted to find a way to get people involved, but also not just accept everyone who comes knocking at the door. And I think that if you do want to be, potentially considered for casting conflicts, then maybe join that Discord server in the description below here. It's going to link to the Discord that Beastly was using to run these events here. With a potential future of competitive gaming in this area, in CNC and the Red Team family of products here. Things like that you may want to get yourself involved in more, because who knows, I might be looking to them when I'm looking to recruit some players to join us in casting conflict. So if you want your chance to be involved inside of the casting conflict, I'm not sure when, by the way, like disclaimer, I have no idea when season 3 is going to be happening. We're not that far into the planning yet, and so yeah, we have a ways to go. But I know some people were still curious on whether or not they can compete in the future, and I think joining tournament servers like that and competing in them are going to be your best chance to be able to show off your skills and be considered potentially when we move into the next season. So that's kind of the little tidbit I wanted to leave you guys off on, because I know a lot of people ask me about, hey, can I join Casting Conflicts? How can I join? That might be your first step for sure, so definitely consider that if you want. But with that being said, I think that's going to do it for the video, guys. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you did enjoy this video here. And if you want to support that channel, again, all you got to do is subscribe and help us push to 1K. I think we're about 90 away as recording this. It's an exciting time. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for me for now, guys. So, until next time, stay gaming.